Today I would like to focus on action research in Chinese English language teachers' professional development. As I was told, you are all either teachers or school administrators. Basically, you work for teachers' professional development. So I chose that topic to share with you. So my lecture will be divided into these 6 aspects. Firstly, a very brief overview of theoretical evolutions in teacher education, and then major features of teacher education research in the past 40 years. And then a very brief view of language teachers' professional development research in China, and action research in English language teachers' professional development. And then I will talk about briefly issues and challenges in professional development of English language teachers in China. And finally, I leave some time for discussion, question and answers. Okay. So first, a very brief overview of theoretical evolution in teacher education. This part will be divided into 3 aspects. Part 1 is paradigm shifts in social sciences. Broadly speaking, I will briefly come from positivism tradition to anti-positivism tradition, then critical theory, and then constructivism. So for a long time, we all know that for many researchers or scholars, they didn't believe social science have proper research. So they believe only natural science have research. That's why positivism is very popular not only in natural science, but also for a long time in social science. We were heavily influenced by natural science. We think only we do empirical research, that is proper research. Otherwise, it's not proper research, okay? And we have the criticism of positivism. In spite of its proven success in natural sciences, positivism is not so successful in its application in social sciences. The second precise target of attack upon positivism has been its mechanistic and reductionist view of nature. We all know that. For example, if you conduct a questionnaire, people give you very brief answers, then do you know the real truth? They may give you a very quick check saying, I totally agree, absolutely agree, and then what's it? We don't know. We almost know nothing about the in-depth.
Either or dualism.
Yes, okay. And anti-Posotivism then come into the tradition, okay? A common thread running through the schools and stances is the consistent concern with human interaction with phenomena in their real lives, and subsequently suggests a qualitative rather than quantitative research paradigm for social inquiry, okay? And along with that is the critical theory. Critical theorists argue that both the positivist and the interpretive paradigms are essentially of a technicist seeking to understand and render an existing situation more efficient, rather than to question and transform it. What's the point is there? You know, when we criticize positivism, we argue for the place for qualitative tradition. That is, we would like to look at phenomena with consideration of their context, with consideration of its situational factors, right? But then critical theory goes beyond that part, saying that not only just look at the environment or look at the complicated factors surrounding it, but you should do what? You should take actions. You should really voice that out. So critical theory goes even one step forward, saying that we should challenge the dominant strength. We should really voice for the weakness. For example, we are all teachers or teacher administrators. We know that, for example, if a country have their national policy in language teaching or language education, we have to follow that, right? So in a way, we are in a weaker, comparatively speaking, point. So to what extent we can really argue for the policy makers to make real decisions for the real need of language learners or for the real need of language teachers, then that is critical theorists' point of view. So their intention goes on to change situations and phenomena. So not only just look at the complicated context really realize a society that is based on equality and democracy for all its members. So this is a very brief contrast between positivism and anti-positivism. So we all know that positivism emphasizes on pause and decontextualization. Yes, because we only take out whatever we need, okay? But anti-positivism, we put it as a whole. We want to look at something as an integrated part, okay? So we emphasize on integration, okay? And positivism consider the only objective and it's quantifiable, but the anti-positivism also considers subjective side of either your participants or the agents, okay? So for positivism, we rely on experts. When all of us are working in applied linguistics, we all know that before applied linguistics, there is only the field of what? Linguistics, okay? So all linguistic theories come to guide our applied linguistics. But after these years of research and practices, we now try to inform those linguists, right? Yes. We say, please don't just stay in the ivory tower. Please look at the reality, what is going on there. When you talk about communicative language teaching, look at our large classroom. Is that possible? Is that feasible? And to what extent we can inform, we can give feedback to those theories, those pure theories, okay? So for positivism, they seek for standardization. And for anti-positivism, we appreciate diversity. Okay, we know different contexts, need different approaches, okay? So paradigm shifts, next generation comes to constructivism. It holds that individuals create or construct their new understandings or knowledge through the interaction of what they already know, believe, and fresh ideas, events, and activities with which they come in contact. So look at this learning cycle. We start from new information. But new information, when they come to you, they will interact with your existing knowledge, okay? And you will try to elicit to what extent it makes sense to you, okay? So we make meanings of new input. And then we confirm or disconfirm. Sometimes we agree, sometimes we disagree with the new information. So there comes a stage of matching or mismatching with the new information, okay? So if you really the new information matches with your existing knowledge, so that can be maintained and somehow becomes your integrative part of your existing knowledge. You enhance your knowledge, expanded your language body. But then if it doesn't really come to your existing knowledge framework, it may goes back to new information again. You have to challenge it. To what extent I filter it out? To what extent I observe it? Okay. So central to this circle is the individual's personal agency and the evolutionary nature of meaning construction. Yeah, so this to some extent really depends on individuals. To what extent you keep an open mind and want to really take in the new information, to what extent you can't keep yourself kind of shut down from the outside information. And the learners actively construct and test their representations of the world and then fit them into a personal framework. For a long time, when we do teacher education, we do have, for example, 2 weeks or 3 week sessions, but whatever new theories or practices have been introduced, it really depends on teachers themselves. They will see to what extent this really can really help me in my real teaching context. They may take in the new information. If they think, well, that's something, you're talking in the air, it doesn't really fit me, then it's just, teacher education program, then that's all, okay? So theoretical evolutions in teacher education, we kind of have gone through these broadly approaches. The first one, behavioristic approach, and then cognitive approach, and then constructivism teacher education. So behaviorist approach, I think it somehow echoes the behaviorist, the psychological development in its theory development, okay, to that extent, we also really strongly echoed the psychological theory. They kind of emphasize what stimulus and what your outcome, your behavior. So for a long time, for taking language education as one example, we follow what kind of approach? We follow, for example, sentence drill, right? You ask students to practice this, for example, subjective, verb and objective, and then you practice 10 of these sentences, and then you know how to use it, right? That's behaviorist, because we believe once students receive this stimulus, they can really give the output as what they receive, okay? That's behaviorist point of view. And the knowledge of language acquisition per se does not suffice to warrant firm pedagogical applicants, though it may help stimulate critical thought on teaching practices. The other is that what occurs in the learning process is extremely complex and is subject to impact from dynamic contextual factors, and therefore very difficult to investigate. You know that for one single language classroom, even the language teacher uses the same sentence drill method, not all students will take that back, right? We have students who really can know, okay, this is the real grammar correctly sentence, and then we know how to use it. But there are other students that they didn't follow simply, okay? They won't take that back. Okay, behaviorists sometimes also simplify language learning process. We have lots of issues. For example, taking motivation is one example. Some students are highly motivated, they accept whatever teacher is given, but for other students, they kind of, from the very beginning, they really reject language learning itself. They have to. They say, why need to learn another language? I know my native language, I can use it, and I won't use it after my graduation. Why should I learn? But we all know that language policy or foreign language policy is not decided by language teachers, even by schools, right? Okay. So what it has to be admitted that this body of research has greatly enlightened both researchers and practitioners in understanding learning and teaching. The research methods available are not yet adequate for them to uncover the process, and thus they're still far from knowing the process, not to mention informing teaching. Yeah. So the typical approach for language education might be audiolingual method. Listen to the original language input, and you are supposed to produce, okay, what you've heard or you've learned. But language use is much more complicated than that, right? Just giving you one very tiny example. We all learn, when we first time learning English, we say, our teachers tell us, how do you do, or how are you, is the common greeting. But when you go abroad, if you hear a native speaker first time seeing you, saying, are you all right? You feel at a loss. What does he mean? Am I not all right? Okay, so there is a joke about a Chinese student in a foreign country, and the local cleaner asked him, what's up? And he looked up. And then he's down, and then he looked down. Okay, but actually that's nothing to do with what is happening. Okay, so the context is so important. Okay, the cognitive approach. Teacher cognition is defined as pre- or in-service teacher self-reflection, belief and knowledge about teaching students and the content, and awareness of problem-solving strategies endemic to classroom teaching. So the cognitive approach, when we apply to students, the approach is more emphasizing students' level of understanding. Okay, so the cognitive approach is more emphasizing, we try to teach our students with their level of cognition. For example, if they don't understand that level, then we shouldn't teach. Otherwise, they just won't accept, okay, they don't understand it. And when we use this cognitive approach to examine our teacher's mind, it's more towards our teacher's mindset. To what extent they know or understand language teaching profession or language teaching process. So the need for researchers to focus on teacher cognition, one is that a solely behavioral model is conceptually incomplete and cannot account for predictable variations in teachers' behavior arising from differences in their goals, judgments, and decisions. Yeah, the same is true for teachers, actually. The same classroom, students might take in back different things. They may interpret teachers' instructions differently. And for teachers, the same. Even they have the professional training program, they may take back different things. They may understand things differently. So teachers' cognition is also important. The other is that research linking teachers' intentions to their behavior will provide a sound for educating teachers and implementing educational innovations. We do have very experienced teachers. They are really very good at handle the classroom. To what extent, okay, I should start and manage activities and close the class. They know very well. And to what extent they really want to apply the new information or new approach into their classroom is very challenging as well. If they think they are good enough, they are competent enough, okay? So research on teacher cognition was considered the revival of the study of teachers, but from a different perspective, a shift of focus from observations and the replications of the outside. What do teachers do to explorations into their inner side? How do they think and make decisions? You see, previous teacher education, we simply observe classrooms. We kind of give a tick, okay? If the teacher has done this, if they have done that, okay, if they follow this approach, or whether they initiate or they encourage students to raise questions. But then what is really going on in their minds? So the research for that time haven't really come into that. We do gradually started to know that teacher's mind is also very complicated, okay? How do they think? Why they make that decision? Just when we think, for example, when we observe a very passive student in the class, does that mean he's really passive? Maybe he is very active in his mind, but he just chose not to speak out, okay? So criticism to cognition approach, the first was the few of studies have traced the teaching process, okay? Another one was that most studies treat the teacher's cognition as fixed, static, and observable from afar. That's another issue, because we always change, right? Teachers' thinking patterns may also change, okay? Taking different activities or information they've received or knowledge they've gained, okay? So how it develops is continually neglected in the research area. So the constructivism teacher education, teachers select and decide themselves what the inputs from these sources will be incorporated into their representation of the teaching. Change occurs as new information is accommodated, confirmed or challenged through personal interactions with prior knowledge, the environment, and other people. So from this point, we say sometimes we should give more priority to teachers themselves. They know the best of their classroom and their teaching. So next part of this brief review is about reflective practitioner, a new epistemology of practice. So this covers 3 points. Number 1 is the nature of reflection and its implications, and the reflective practice in teacher education, and the reflection upon reflection in teacher education. The notion of reflection in terms of its nature, interpretation, and the implications for professional practice is done through a critical review of 2 versions, respectively by Dewey and Swan. So these 2 are 2 most famous scholars in this domain of teacher education research. According to Dewey, he is normally acknowledged as a key originator in the 20th century of its concept of reflection. Though his idea is believed to have drawn upon the ideas of the many others. Of course, we all know that. When we say an outstanding researcher, they never comes from scratch, okay? They always stand on the shoulder of a giant, okay? So we do research, but we follow others' research result. So he may draw on different research findings or thoughts from other philosophers or educators. So the nature of reflection and its implications. The function of reflective thought, according to Dewey, is to transform a situation in which there is experienced obscurity, doubt, conflict, and disturbance of some sort into a situation that is clear, coherent, settled, and harmonious. So according to Dewey, reflection helps you to solve problems. And Dewey describes what constitutes reflective thought as active, persistent, and careful consideration of any belief or supposed form of knowledge in light of the grounds that support it and the further conclusion to which it tends. Okay, I guess, because we are all either teachers, teacher educators, or teacher administrators, we, from time to time, we have our own reflections, okay, along with our occupations. And Scott's epistemology of practice. So the question of the relation between the kinds of knowledge honored in academia and the kinds of competence valued in professional practice has emerged. So the mismatch between professional knowledge and the real situation of practice fundamentally characterized with complexity, uncertainty, instability, and interdependency and value conflicts. So reflective practice in teacher education, the red color highlighted words are most important, marrying the theoretical underpinning of the teaching with the practical realities of the classroom. Yeah. So reflective practice in teacher education. For Cathead, he said, Sloan's work has been attractive to some because they believe it promotes the idea of teachers as professionals by juxtaposing teaching with those usually regarded as major. You know, for a long time, teachers' professional development is ignored. Okay, nobody thinks teachers a proper profession. Okay, so this is the actually the pioneering time that they argue teaching is a profession. It should have its own standard. It should have its association to give standard and to really guide the professional development of all the teachers in this field. So a new window opens up new possibilities in that it allows for reconceptualizing the notion of knowledge so that it includes teachers' way of knowing and how they use their knowledge in classroom. Because at the very beginning, they think that teachers are just maybe technologists. Okay, you just train somebody in certain skill, then that's all. But actually, teacher profession will know that it's so complicated and involves so many factors to look at. We have our own professional standards. So Sloan takes over Dewey's idea of problem solving in terms of inspired action, but rephrase it as a questioning stance out of surprises, pleasing and promising or unwanted. It is the questioning stance that it motivates reflection in action and or reflection on action. I hope you can see the difference between these two. So reflection in action, that is more in the process, okay? When you are still performing, for example, teaching, you still reflect in your real process, okay? What's going on there, okay? Or if you see students didn't keep silence, didn't give you a response, then what's going on there, right? And the reflection on action, that is more when it's done, okay, when it's completed, you reflect upon your action has been taken, then is that valid, is that effective, okay, to what extent I should improve next time, okay? So problem solving in terms of reflection and on action is a process in which practitioners attempt to make sense of a challenging situation, identify area of practice needing re-examination, define goals for improvement, and pursue actions to accomplish them. Here I would like to share one example with all of you. When I did my PhD in the UK, my research topic is more about learner autonomy. And I once heard a lecture given by a Danish researcher. She said in Denmark, students really at that time, they were really very passive in learning English, for example, okay? And when she walk into a classroom, students kind of doing whatever they want to do. They basically didn't listen to her. And so she decided to give up the course outline. And she just used the whole session telling all students, you tell me what do you want to learn? And then students kind of decide by themselves what they want to learn. And then they make a kind of a new teaching syllabus for the whole term. That's coming up as the very, very initial learner autonomy practice. And it proves very successful later on in Denmark. Okay, so I leave the ground for you students. You decide. What do you want to learn? You don't want to listen to my instruction, okay? No problem. Okay, what do you want to learn? And then teachers, but they don't just totally leave students alone. After all, they are students, okay? So teachers should guide the learners, okay? You want to learn this? No problem. Then we should follow appropriate method to gain the best result, okay? So upon reflection in teacher education, in the theory, reflection is conceived of as a progression involving 3 distinct stages. So the first stage concerns the application of skills and technical knowledge in the classroom setting. The second stage, by contrast, involves reflecting upon the assumptions underlying a particular classroom practice, as well as the potential consequence of that practice on student learning. So even one teacher teaches 2 classrooms, possibly she has to justify to what extent she can apply the same method to the 2 classrooms. Okay, really, she or he has to take into consideration students' factors. It is in this stage that teachers are assessing the educational implications of their actions and beliefs. The third stage entails questioning the decisions related to classroom situations by making connections between the situations and the broader social, political, and economic contexts. Okay. So major of teacher education research in the past 40 years. Broadly speaking, okay, this has been summarized by scholars. The first feature is that most of the research effort is dedicated to pre-college level. Okay, it's more about the high school, middle school, and even primary school. The second feature is that language teacher education has become increasingly fragmented and unfocused. It is a regretful matter of fact, considering the long tradition of teacher education research. Basically, because we haven't really come up as a very influential, really disseminable theoretical framework. So basically they take whatever theoretical framework they can rely on to do their own research and research on different aspects. The third feature is that most of the studies focus on classroom management and the generic aspects of teaching, as if teachers of all subject disciplines at all levels face the same problems and would develop professionally in the same way. That is another shortcoming of teacher education research in the past 40 years. So this is trying to elaborate a bit these 3 aspects. So who are qualified to tell university professors how to teach if the teacher educators do not share equal academic status with university professors, traditionally and currently? So this is a question raised for the college level teacher education. Actually, if we only focus on middle school, high school, and primary school educators, if we ignore university level teacher education. The goal of teacher education is to prepare and develop good and effective teachers who can produce good and effective learning. You know, for a long time, when university enroll their new faculties, they maybe seldom really check the teaching method, they know, or whether they are good teachers. They might be very good researchers, but whether they can be qualified as good teachers, nobody really care about that. Okay, that's a shame for a long time. Okay. So language teacher education has become increasingly fragmented and unfocused. Schumann comments, we may be asking the wrong questions and focusing on the wrong units of analysis. In retrospect, in a reminiscence article about several decades of research on teaching and teacher education in 1970s. So most of the studies are focused on classroom management and generic aspects of teaching. For example, research on EFL, English language teaching, English as a foreign language teaching, okay, teacher education is weak, noticeably missing from the professional discourse. So in professional development, language educators' professional development, comparatively speaking, is still a weak domain in the research, in academia in general. It was not until 1990 that the first substantial piece of work on ESL teacher education. There are a number of studies, notably on reflective teaching and EFL teacher learning. Little empirical work developing into good teachers, either conceptually or research-wise. So, very brief view of language teachers' professional development research in China. So here is a very brief picture of Chinese teachers professional development research, okay, just within the Chinese largest database, okay, about Chinese language teachers professional development, we can see the curve. So you see, started from almost 1980s, around 1980s till now, and the peak time is between 2014 something, okay, based on the article published, okay. And if we analyze according to topic, the largest is foreign language language teachers professional development, which amounts the most in terms of the numbers of publications, okay. And we have different themes, but foreign language teachers professional development ranked as #1. And within that, it's further divided into different aspects. Again, the top one is again foreign language teachers professional development. But why it's the first ranked as #1? Because lots of the papers only discuss about, for example, the significance. Okay, they only kind of, it's more about their reflective thoughts about language teachers professional development is important, but we lack of empirical research indeed. So action research in English language teachers professional development, that is my focus of today's sharing. So what is action research? Here we have three, I just listed three, we have more than that, okay? Many scholars have already defined a concept from different perspectives. Taking #1 as one example might be described as an inquiry conducted into a particular issue of current concern, usually undertaken by those directly involved with the aim of implementing a change in a specific situation. And #2, a form of self-reflective inquiry undertaken by participants in social situations in order to improve the rationality and justice of their own practices. And if we go on to the third one, practical way of looking at your work in any profession to check that it is as you would like it to be. If you feel that it is already good quality, you describe and explain what you are doing to other people and say why you think they would agree with what you are saying. So you see, scholars try to define action research from different perspectives, but at the same time we also know that action research is not only exclusively to language educators, okay? So according to Wang and Zhang, they summarize it. The common characters of action research, #1, it is systematic and reflective inquiry, with reflection being at its core. So you have to constantly reflect, okay? It is directed by teachers who investigate and research on issues identified in their own teaching. So this really opens the door for all those teaching practitioners, those language teachers themselves, okay, what might be their own specific problems. #3, action research is a series of process to complete. So action research is not just something you just, okay, I saw the problem and then I try to solve it. It's not that really simple, okay, you have to follow a series of procedures. And #4, the purpose of action research is to improve teaching practice, expecting the best result, at least with the hope of that. Okay, not all the time that you conduct the action research, it ends up with good findings or result. Okay. So development of process of action research in China, initial translation phase, that's from late 1970s to early 1990s. By that time, because action research was first initiated in the Western academia, okay, basically in 1970s to 1990s, scholars in China, normally they just translated theories or research results from the West into Chinese applications. And then promotion and implementation phase is starting from early 1990s to the early 21st century, okay? And then development and reflection phase, early 21st century to the present. So action research in the field of foreign language education in China. we have collaborations with foreign partners to establish the Chinese Foreign Language Teaching Action Research Experimental Center. The projects encompass various aspects such as teaching textbooks, teaching methods, cultural awareness, student affective strategies, and learning strategies. So this basically was initiated by the first generation of Chinese language educators. These scholars have overseas learning experience or visiting experience. So they brought back theories or research practices in the West and tried to connect with scholars outside. And then they started joint programs, okay, and invited those scholars to guide their local research. The second one, incorporation of action research courses in higher education institutions. That is really something new, especially in normal university. Do you know normal university in China? That is to prepare language teachers, or not just language teachers, okay, prepare teachers, okay, we call it normal university. We have different levels of normal university. So they have incorporated this course as a research methodology course in their teacher preparation course, okay? So students may learn this before their graduation. So after graduation, when they become, for example, senior high school teachers or middle school teachers, they know what action research is. So that's something new. And collaborative exploration of action research between higher education institutions and K-12 teachers establish novel teacher learning communities. You know that nowadays in China, the university and the middle school connection is very close. Okay, we have different research centers linking both higher education and middle or primary school. They have constantly, for example, maybe monthly meetings, okay, they discuss issues, and the professors from universities, they may observe their high school classroom and the middle school classroom, okay, and then they conduct joint research. So, how to identify a research topic? To identify the research subject, it should originate from the teacher's own experience. That's number one. Including the questions, challenges, and areas of dissatisfaction and unresolved issues they can encounter in their teaching. It can also stem from the misalignment between their plans and the reality they face. I think before we formally discuss action research, I'm sure teachers will always discuss their questions or problems they observe in their classroom with their colleagues, okay? But in that stage, we basically discuss it maybe casually, and then we try to solve it. Then that's it. But action research really brings a platform for those practitioners, a stage for them to do proper research. Okay. The second one is formulate the research question. Clearly articulate the identified problem to create a research question that is actionable, specific, and can be, for example, how can I improve the effectiveness of my current practices? So when you try to identify a problem, that is the same thing for we do proper research. We may have a very ambitious goal. You want to solve a global problem, but can you do that? Okay, we have to see the feasibility. Okay, so again, even for practitioners, even they identify certain problems, to what extent they can solve it really depends on lots of conditions. Okay. The formation of the research questions must be driven by the teacher themselves, accompanied by thoughtful reflection on their own practices. Proposing hypotheses and identifying research issues. So formulate hypotheses for the causes of the problem, analyze and infer the reasons underlying the problem. Okay. I once had a PhD applicant who is very interesting. You know what? He wants to investigate because he observed that so many students feel so bored by learning a foreign language. He said they are so indulged in game playing. Can I make language learning into a game? And can I design a game? Just like normally we think game playing is just for kids, for very young children, right? But this student wants to design games for adults. Okay, by playing games, they learn the language. He tried to incorporate language expressions into the game design. That's a very innovative approach. Okay, so you see, so we need to hypothesize, okay, to what extent we will really solve the problem, okay. And this can be done from 3 different perspectives. Number 1, student-related factors. When we try to solve a language teaching and learning problem, we have to always think about student factor. Okay, that is something we can't ignore. And teacher-related factors, again, important, almost equally important. And other factors such as textbooks and the learning environment, that's something we may also need to think about. You see, when we talk about, for example, learning autonomy, for the first generation theorists, they think if we have self-access center, then learners can be automatically autonomous. Is that true? It's not true, right? We have so many language labs. Do students go by themselves voluntarily? Maybe not all, right? Okay. So the very initial assumption is that, for example, many adults, they want to learn language, but they have their occupations, they have to go work in daytime. Can they, choose their own time to learn and at their own pace? That's a very good assumption. But then when language centers were built up, again, these learners do not know how to learn. Okay, even they have their own time to go to the lab. They have their own schedule to visit the lab. But again, they should be guided. The same is true. So far, we have so popular internet. We can almost get all kinds of language resources in what we want to have. But does that mean our learners can learn language by themselves? Okay, we do not know what kind of language sources goes to them, right? Okay, as teachers, we still have to really select appropriate levels of resources for the target learners. So hypotheses can be speculative and or predictive. Proposed hypotheses about potential changes or outcomes that the action research plan may lead to during the design stage of the action research plan in order to prepare for the development of the action plan. So issues and challenges in the professional development of English teachers in China. So this is raised by a scholar, Cheng in 2001. Number 1, insufficient emphasis on teacher training in teacher education institutions, with some institutions even displaying a tendency towards de-emphasizing the teaching aspect. You know that for, I don't know, situation in your own country, but in China, even though we have different language teaching approach, but for high school and for middle school teachers, they were really heavily loaded by all kinds of work, okay? They have to also somehow, okay, they may be evaluated by their graduates, either, more students go to a key high school or key university, these issues, and apart from that, maybe a lot of administrative issues. And also for middle school teachers, they may also shoulder the duty of visiting parents or, talk to parents, all kinds of things, okay? So that's one practical issue. And not all graduates from English majors in teacher education institutions possess the qualifications to become effective English teachers. That's certainly true. Okay, not all normal university will, prepare really qualified teachers. Pre-service teacher training tends to be disconnected from the actual teaching practices in primary and secondary schools. And that's the case not only in language education, but also in other fields as well, right? We all know that in different disciplines, we do have such problems. And there is a significant proportion of English teachers who have not received adequate pre-service teacher education. That's the fact, okay? We all know that China has a large population. We have so many language learners, okay? And also China is a very unbalanced country. We have very developed areas such as, for example, Suzhou. Suzhou and Shanghai almost represents the best part of China. And then, I don't know whether you guys have a chance to visit the west part of China. We have very developing areas, okay? We have a village or several villages sharing one school, and the kids have to maybe walking miles or even several miles to go to a primary school, even without a proper, for example, language teacher. They may have a music teacher teaching Chinese or teaching English. Imagine that fact, okay? So another issue, the absence of a comprehensive support system for teachers' professional growth. This really depends on the administrators at different levels, okay, either municipal level or city level or the local level, to what extent they support teachers' professional development. And insufficient awareness among teachers regarding the importance of continuous professional development. We do have this portion of teachers. They just take it as a job. Okay, I have my job and then I can survive, then that's it, okay? So they don't ask for more, okay? And a lack of necessary support structure of facilitating teachers' professional growth, that's another issue. Sometimes we do hear teacher complain, for example, if you leave your job for 1 year or two, for example, to obtain a degree, to improve your qualifications, but then you might miss the chance that your original university or school has, right? Okay, something like that. So that's very brief. I just